Hello chess friends and welcome to your out of chess channel and welcome to a very special game that I prepared for you today. I'm really glad that I will show you this game because it's such a remarkable game played by Stockfish 15. And again, the beauty about this game is that we'll see Stockfish 15 brutalizing its opponents with the black pieces, and I really love to see many of these games when black is winning the game because they're really so hard to find, and especially in this top engine level where every engine has a high rating. So as I said, it makes really this game special, and especially in this game you see also beautiful opening choice because many of us, I think, had some trouble to play against the English opening. Many times you don't know what to do, many times you don't find maybe a good setup, you don't want to play so complicated games, you want to play maybe more direct lines, you want to play sort of a clear fight line. That's why I think this is also a special game, because here you witness a beautiful Kramnik-Shirov counterattack against the English opening Stockfish 15 will pull off. So I think for those who have trouble maybe to play against the English, this will be a perfect game and also a perfect setup here that Stockfish will show us. So today Stockfish 15 will play against this arch enemy, sort of Fat Fritz 2. I have to again repeat here, I usually don't cover games played by Fat Fritz 2 because we know the drama that happened. Fat Fritz developers used the Stockfish code and tried to sell them under the Fat Fritz engine, so it was a huge drama, I think, in the chess community. There was, I think, also lawsuit going on, so you have to know the Fat Fritz 2 used Stockfish engine, and now also this Fat Fritz 2 engine is running on the Stockfish code. So that's why I don't think that you should buy any of these products, because you can really have the best Stockfish engine for free. Why should you buy anything that's even much worse than the best engine in the world? So you are not a fool, of course. You can have the Stockfish 15 engine simply for free. You don't need anything else. So as I said, so that's why we have to again say it. I would not really cover these games, but this game is really special because I wanted to show you really a beautiful method how to beat the English opening. So okay, let's see the game. So Fat Fritz opened with the move c4. So as I said, it's Fat Fritz running on the Stockfish code. So here after move c4, Stockfish 15 response was e5. So we have now the reverse Sicilian, we have knight to c3, and now comes this beautiful Kramnik-Shirov counterattack. The idea is clear. You not win the game immediately because of course you played bishop to b4. What you want to do, at least you have an idea in the beginning, you have already an idea in move 2, which is, I think, a good method in chess. We want to, of course, immediately to take out the knight and then mess up a little bit the pawn structure. Whatever happens, d takes c3 or b takes c3, you have at least sort of messed up your opponent's pawn structure. Then maybe the c4 is a weakness. So that's why in the continuation, white right here, the move queen to b3 is not allowing this scenario. Is saying if you want to take out the knight, at least I'll take out with the queen, and then we have here sort of a position where you don't have a messed up pawn structure, and at least white is continuing the game with the bishop pair and has, of course, then a healthy pawn structure. So that's why here in the continuation, a5 was played by Stockfish 15. So Stockfish supports the bishop. We have now a3 and now bishop to c3. After queen to c3, we can notice now, okay, the bishop is off the board, and okay, white has sort of an advantage. White has still the bishop pair on the board, but now there is a beautiful method that Stockfish will apply here. First of all, d6, we have e3, and now a4, and this is a very important move because this move is paralyzing a little bit the queen side. And whenever you give up a bishop for a knight in an early stage of the game, you should notice many things. First of all, in this example, we have given up the bishop, the dark square bishop for the knight. That's why we have to control further the dark squares, and I think this moves d6, you see we have sort of a pawn chain on dark squares, gives us, I think, here now at least a solid game on dark squares, because you have to protect your dark squares in the continuation. You have given up the dark square bishop, now you have to battle for the squares. But also this move a4 is a beautiful strategic and beautiful sort of a planning move, because when, for instance, b4 happens, then we can always take en passant, and after queen to b3, notice now that the pawn structure of blacks is much healthier. We have here an isolated pawn on a3 that can be attacked by black in the near future. We have also a structural weakness, I think, on c4, and still in the continuation continuation of the game, I think black would play grip on dark squares, so we want, as I said, really be compact on dark squares because we have given up the dark square bishop. We will, I think, proceed here with the normal b6, then bishop to b7, maybe even knight to d7, knight to f6, and maybe in the near future we could also cement maybe this knight on c5. Maybe we can push the pawn on e4, maybe we can paralyze also further the position. So this would be, I think, sort of a compact setup that we want to build, and we're not allowing maybe this pawn to march on. So as I said, when you are playing with the knight against the bishops, then we want to really have a solid and stop the pawn structure. We don't want to let these pawns rolling in the center of the board. So that's why here after move a4, really beautiful move. Here white tried d4 immediately, and that's how you play when you have the bishops on the board. White would love now, of course, to open the position. Here maybe a positional mistake would be by black this move, e takes d4. Look at this, e takes d4, and now that's a position that white suddenly loves. The bishops is coming into the game. This bishop will come into the game. Knight to e2, maybe kingside castling, and we just push the pawns, and the position is exploding for the bishop here. So as I said, this is something that you should try to avoid now from black's perspective. So here after move d4, Stockfish is saying, okay, at least you have this bad bishop here on c1. At least this bishop is not participating immediately, at least in the game. So here we have knight to c6, we have knight to f3, queen to e7. So in the beginning it was a huge battle for the e5 square. Now you see white could maybe try this idea, d5, to get an extra tempo against the knight, but this is exactly what white should not do here. White should try to keep the position dynamic. So now with the move d5, okay, you have your fun with one tempo, but look at this, now knight to a5, we're targeting here the b3 square, and now suddenly the pawn structure is static. It's really hard now for white to push the pawns further. In the near future also b6 will happen, and now we'll never really allow maybe a potential c5 by white. Now the position is perfect here, I think, for black. So that's why you see after move queen to e7, white tried here the move c5, and again this is the correct way, and again you should try to open the position as much as you can when you have the bishops on the board. So it's now really battle bishop versus knight. So in the continuation we have knight to f6 by Stockfish 15, we have c takes d6, c takes d6, and again d takes e5. So again white is desperately trying to open the position. We have d takes e5, and now comes really the critical moment already in the game. Bishop to b5 was played here by white, and when I analyzed the game at home, I was like, what is going on? How can black even consider to win this game? Because it's such a tense game here around the square e5. I'm not seeing good ways how to defend this position, and the problem I think here in this scenario is, for instance, if you try to protect yourself with the move bishop to d7, this seemed to me in the beginning as a logical move, but then look at this, bishop to c6 is going to happen, bishop to c6, and now queen to e5 comes with the direct threat that the queens could be off the board. That's now a huge problem. Okay, you could maybe mess up a little bit the pawn structure, bishop to f3, then queen to e7, king to e7, g takes f3, and okay, maybe black can survive this position. I'm not saying that this is completely winning for white, but this is a bad position. Of course, rook to g1 is going to happen, targeting here the g7 weakens, bishop to d2, bishop to c3, and we have to say it, white is simply up a pawn. So basically from this point on, black is struggling just maybe to get a draw in this position. So that's why after move bishop to b5, you see this move bishop to d7 is not working. So that's why this is a special game. As I said, Stockfish found a beautiful idea. Stockfish castled out of this mess and saying, okay, you can have your fun, you can maybe even take some pawns, you can even take 1, 2, 3 pawns, but I'm simply playing on your bad bishop that's not participating in the game. So in the continuation we have bishop to c6, we have b takes c6, and now queen to e5. But notice now that the king is out of this mess, so now black doesn't have to trade off the queens. That's the beauty about this tactical sequence. And okay, Stockfish is saying, you are having one pawn, but it doesn't matter, now I'm on the attacking side. Still you have to castle, still you have to secure the king. But now look at this, after move queen to b7 and kingside castling, Stockfish played now a beautiful move, of course, rook to e8, and suddenly black has here a beautiful attacking formation. And that's the beauty I think about this game. I think it's a decent compensation for the lost pawn. Look at this. This rook is playing. This rook will maybe be included into the game, maybe with some beautiful rook lift ideas. Rook to a5, maybe rook to h5. This bishop is active anyway. The queen is okay. The queen can be improved maybe in the later stage of the game. Knight is very active, can come on e4. So every piece of black is now playing. That's the beauty about this temporarily sacrifice of the pawn. Now Stockfish is taking over and has some good attacking chances. So we have queen to d4. So now, for instance, what you could make here as a mistake, and I would play probably immediately this move, rook to e4. c5 was the continuation by Stockfish 15. I, for instance, would play rook to e4 immediately, and I would feel like, okay, I'm attacking here immediately, I'm so great, look how my rook is coming into the game. But actually here, after move rook to e4, of course also check is working, but black has here a beautiful move, queen to c5, and can paralyze a little bit this pawn. Now in the continuation you could try maybe bishop to g4, attacking the knight, but now actually with knight to d4, white can really play now a solid game, has now the centralized knight. You cannot play here this move, you cannot move the pawn further. Now also f3 could be working, so this is a much better continuation for white for sure. So that's why I move queen to d4, c5. So Stockfish sacrificed another pawn, decoyed the queen a little bit to c5, but now with knight to e4. So Stockfish cemented the knight on the square and saying now this is a beautiful knight. Now it also opens a little bit this route for the rook. Maybe the rook can come here on e6, then maybe also to h6, maybe also to g6, wherever we want to play. But this is now really a beautiful flexible position for black. So in the continuation we have now queen to c2, rook to a6. So you see how one of these rooks will come into the game for sure. So I would not love to play now anymore this game from white's perspective, although the evaluation is about equal. But look at this, this is a beautiful Stockfish harmony. So here in the continuation, bishop to d2. White is trying desperately to try to get this bishop into the game, but now rook to g6 as expected, and now comes queen to a4. So Stockfish lost now 3 pawns just in order to get this kind of an attacking formation. Let's see also possible different configurations, because this is now really the critical moment of the game. Let's see what happens if you play, for instance, bishop to b4 instead of this maybe queen takes a4. Look at this, then knight to rook to g7 can be rook to g2, pardon me, king to g2, and the problem is now you get knight to g5. This is the tactical shot that white would probably prepare. You have to play something maybe like e4, but now even rook to e4 can be played. Maybe you can play queen to d3, but look at this now. This is a beautiful stunner, rook to d4. If you take, of course, then we take queen takes f3, and also with knight to h3, it's a beautiful checkmate. I'm showing you this because I just wanted to feel what kind of a tactic really could happen. This wasn't played in the game, but I think it's very important for the continuation of the game to see that actually the cracking point is around the square g2, that this is now the tactical target here of black. So in the continuation, as we said, after move rook to g6, queen to a4 has been played by white, and notice now how this square g2 will be suddenly connected to the queen on a4. Here from this point on, Stockfish plays really an immortal tactical shot. So we have here now a rook to g2 anyway, because here after king to g2, here in the continuation we have even this one, bishop to h3. Stockfish decoys the king a little bit further to the h3 square, but now queen to c8, we have king to g2. Now comes the check, and after king to h1, now Stockfish finally takes the knight on f3. And okay, again, when I analyzed the game without analyzing so much with the engine, I thought, okay, maybe black has some perpetuals, black will maybe get a draw because still white is up a whole rook. But of course, after king to g1, now again in check, again a couple of checks, and now after move queen to g4, now comes this stunner. Look at this, how actually, as we said, this square on g2 was connected to this queen on a4. Now with this stunning tactics, knight to f2, we have rook to f2, and finally Stockfish took out the queen on a4 and has now a much better position. Okay, still we have to say, okay, white has a decent compensation. White has a bishop and a rook and a pawn for the queen, so still white can maybe escape from this attacks. But we have to also say the king on h1 is a little bit naked. It's attacked, it can be attacked in the near future for sure. So here in the continuation, we have rook to g2, we have g6, we have rook to e1, and now queen to a7, attacking now also the e3 pawn. So we have here now e4, queen to b7, attacking now this pawn, and now a rook to e2 tries, of course, here to protect the pawn on e4. If you try, of course, b4, in my opinion, I thought, okay, maybe you have to advance the pawn, at least you're keeping these two pawns connected, but then still with rook to e4, maybe rook to e4, here queen to e4, look at this, maybe the queen could come here on g1, then we're trying to attack this one, we start to push this pawn, so still it's a messy game for white, so the evaluation here is about +4 for black. So as I said, that's why rook to e2, but suddenly Stockfish grabs grabs this pawn, after bishop to f4 grabs also this pawn, so this is now, in my opinion, completely winning. Still queen to f3 is working, we can start to push pawns here, they create also some madness, so it's now completely winning for the Stockfish 15 energy. King to g2, we have rook to e6, bishop to g3, f6, rook to e3, we have queen to b4, h3, and now queen to c4, king to g1, and Stockfish just slowly push the pawn further. Is trying now, of course, build sort of a fortress with the pawns, and then start also to include the king into the game, because you have to now or even play with your king, although the position is a little bit open, but basically white is a little bit stuck here to the defense of the e4 pawn. So we have bishop to f2, we have king to h7, king to h2, queen to c6, attacking the pawn. Now comes this move, as we said, g5, creates also an open path for the king. So here we have rook to e2, rook to e7, bishop to g3, we have queen to e6, we have bishop to f2, and now Stockfish also plays further with this pawn. So king to g2, king to g6, we have now h4, bishop to e1, king to h5, and now queen to b6 is also a little bit paralyzing this rook here, because it's pinned now to the king. So that's why king to c1, we have rook to e6, we have rook to c3, and now queen to b1, we have a queen to b5. So it's not so easy, of course, to win this kind of endgames, but you have to be patient here. You have to just take this endgame slowly, play just tiny little improvements, of course, also create also simple threats. The simple threat idea here is beautiful, that Stockfish will show. So with every move, Stockfish threatens at least something, and it's not allowing here maybe white to remaneuver the pieces, maybe to create some counterattack. So we have here king to g1, queen to d7, rook to e2, now queen to d4, attacks also now again this pawn on e4. We have a king to f1, and now finally rook takes e4. We have rook to f2. Now again the queen comes here in the center of the board. Again a new check, king to g2, rook to e2, forces, of course, further trades of pieces, which is perfectly fine. We have rook to f3, queen to e4. Here white takes, Stockfish also took on e2. We have now queen to d3, king to g1, and Stockfish grabs also this pawn, has now 3 connected pass pawns. It's of course game over. So we have here rook takes f6, queen to g3, a check. Stockfish pushed the pawn further. Here in the continuation, after move king to g4, rook takes h2 was played, queen takes h2, and in this position here white resigns. So really beautiful game, I think, by Stockfish, and it's, I think, really instructive game, because this move here, for instance, bishop to c3, queen to c3, and d6 followed with a4, it's actually theoretical novelty. So there is no game in the database here with the move d6 followed with a4, which is really incredible. So as I said, maybe you can use this as your surprise element against the English opening. I think this is a solid opening, and I think if, for instance, white plays this direct attack that we have seen here, you can maybe get out of this mess if you can memorize maybe this line. Sometimes use it, try it out. In my opinion, I'll try it for sure, because it's a direct way how to play against the English opening. I'm not saying this is completely winning, of course, because of course white can play some different sidelines, but as a method, as a cornerstone against the English, you can use it and maybe have a good success. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot, especially this brutal tactical shot that Stockfish pulled off. Really immortal stuff. And if you want to see more attacking brilliances like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series with some more games played by Stockfish, Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, and many more. If you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.